Coreyemmah here. Welcome back to my channel and back to my mini-series, kind of 2019/2020 series on books and book reviews on witchcraft or witchy topics. And for this video I chose the book Witch, Unleashed, Untamed, Unapologetic by Lisa Lister. I mentioned this book quite briefly already in the end of year 2019 in one of my vlogs about books that I purchased, and also in another video where I was talking about that I would like to kind of compare this book to Harmony Nice's Wicca and Juliet Diaz's Witchery. I can't really compare them completely because they have loads of different kind of approaches, but I've decided to make one video per each of those books, and The Witch is the last one that I've read, and the last one that I'm making video about from these three books. Also, I must say that Witch is actually the first one that was published from these three. It was published on 2017, so it's the first one with that great idea of like a black cover with metallic writing imprinted to the cover. Here we have a lovely silver with a crescent moon, or the moon sign here in the writing of the main name or of the main title of the book. And I find this idea very, very cool, and I believe that that's one of the parts for which this witch book was so popular and was everywhere, and everybody wanted to buy it because it just is kind of very, very good looking. It has really good aesthetics from outside, and it just looks amazing on Instagram pictures and so on. But we will get inside and we shall see what we will find there. This time I actually marked loads of places to which I would like to look into with you, but it might look like loads of notes and loads of things that I found amazing or that I actually want to share with you during this video, but it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's 6 bookmarks, and these bookmarks are actually only those 6 places where I kind of got something from this book. It's sad to say that, but simply with this author I'm absolutely not on the same kind of vibe. I share some of her opinions. I believe that she's like one step before something really, really huge, but she's still stuck in some kind of angry approach, and not even rebellious, but that kind of poisoned rebellious approach from my point of view, in my opinion. This book is kind of divided into 2 parts, even though there's several chapters. I would say that first 100 pages is just kind of, rather than a book, something like a collage or a mood board, or just a notebook of different ideas rather than a book. It's absolutely not structurized, it's just yay, ha, you, that, this and that, and I suppose it's up to the reader what she or he will take out of it or understand in it, but that part was really confusing, chaotical, and really hard to chew, hard to go through for me. And then there's the second part, which is about another 200 pages, and that's more focused on some kind of witchy practice and actually some approach from the author, how to develop yourself based on this book. Some of those things I appreciate, some of them I kind of didn't agree with. I made plenty of notes here to the list of contents, as is my habit already, and also here on the beginning I have few notes. So if you don't mind me to start with the bad part, because usually we used to talk about the lovely stuff first, but here it's just so many things that I would like to mention, how I was kind of going through trying to understand this author actually, rather than the book and its information, that I would just like to talk about it a little bit. So, what is lovely on the book is that there is loads and loads of atmospherical codes and texts. It's in that first part of the book, and it's really like capturing you, and it's really taking your attention, and it's good. It's giving you that kind of vibe, that kind of like opening that witchy power and taking it and reclaiming it and just untaming it. And unleashing it, but in the same time the author is kind of getting into this angry position, or very hard, strong, not even a feminine position, I would say, and she's trying to push down patriarchy because of the woman power should be like more and bigger, or I don't really know if I got her perfectly, because she's writing there as well about that patriarchy is not connected to men, and it's not the fault of men, and kind of she never explains what is the patriarchy for her. So what is she fighting with, what is she fighting against, and what is her enemy. And that's what I actually really don't like on the book, that this book is written against an enemy. It's written to create an army of strong, powerful women. And I am much more on kind of like a vibe of the peaceful witchcraft, and of understanding, of love and connection, of the duality of yin and yang, men, women, and so on. Even though she says here that patriarchy is not a fault of the male part of the population, she's kind of she's not saying like, who is that patriarch there? Like, is it just some kind of idea that just happened without anyone making it happen? So her enemy, against whom is the book written, is not really described, and I can't really relate to it at all. As well as that when she's describing the feminine power and the power of the witch, of course, that's something that we have to reach inside of ourselves and find on our own. But again, she doesn't really give any kind of point of view from her space, any kind of notes or information about how does she actually feel it. Or it might be hidden in those words like great mumma, or another words that I will just not use in the video, because her language is time to time a little bit too harsh for a lady, for me, from my point of view. Okay, so let's continue with my notes here. So as I said already, it's rather like a patchwork or vision board, collage, mood board, and it creates some kind of like confusion for me. There's several good things, of course, here as well, but that angry approach is something that is kind of ruining it for me. And the worst thing is that every time she writes something that is, I believe, useful and helpful on our journeys, she just ends it with, and this actually works for my propaganda. This actually works for my idea that we are fighting against patriarchy, or we must fight because of we were burned some time ago, and this kind of stuff. And we must show that we are strong, and so on. It's just not my lifestyle in general. So maybe for some people it will be like very, very cheering up and very like taking them to some kind of activity and helping them to like break some boundaries and so on. For me, is just not that case. Also, what I wanted to mention, the last kind of bad-ish thing for me is that she's continuously bringing an attention towards herself. It's not about witchcraft, or like, yes, it is about witchcraft, but she's talking so much about herself, about her story, about things that are, for me, not even that much connected to witchcraft or the objective approach in the book. For example, she's spending plenty of time talking about one specific herb that is her favorite, and then she just like briefly describes few other herbs. I know that in many books there's always some kind of collection that particular witch is using and has good experience with them, and she writes their correspondences. It's absolutely okay to write only about 20 or 30 plants from the whole beautiful floral kingdom. But to just take few and then just take one that is like your totem plant, let's say, and spend some time on that, there was definitely interesting information, but then I would like to have this information about all of those plants, not only about something that she just took as like, this is my best one. It's like if you would be writing a book on animal kingdom or totem animals, and you would just give each animal one page, and then you would spend 20 pages on one animal that is your personal totem animal that basically no one else is using or is not that popular in the use all over the world. So that's one more thing. It's also true that plenty of witches, both in Witchery by Julia Diaz and in Wicca by Harmony Nice, you can find it. They write some kind of her story, some kind of their family story, or how did they found witchcraft, how did they came to witchcraft, and sometimes they just mention something from their practice. But here it's just through the whole book. I'm this witch, I do this unapologetically, and I'm wild and I'm against patriarchy. It's in each and every single chapter just pushed into that, and it was disturbing for me. So let's get into some things that I actually liked, that I bookmarked for myself. So on the beginning, before the opening the circle, the book is starting with opening the circle and it's ending with closing the circle, or these chapters are on the beginning and in the end. So that's something that I like, that gives it at least some kind of structure. Here's a really lovely self-blessing saying, blessed be my mind that learns the way of the witch. Blessed be my eyes that have seen this day. Blessed be my lips that utter your names and keep your secrets. Blessed be my breasts, formed into strength and beauty. Blessed be my womb for being the holy grail, cauldron, and keeper of the mysteries. Blessed be my knees that shall kneel at my altar. Blessed be my feet that help me walk this path. And I really love this blessing. This blessing definitely goes to my Book of Shadows. That was like a first text, first part where I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this book a chance. Then long time nothing was happening that I would actually appreciate. And then she's coming to the part that is called the force of nature. I will just check once more here the contents, because in that second half, let's say, or second bigger half, when you passed those first 100 pages, it starts with next 5 chapters. It's the force of nature, the creatrix, the oracle, the healer, and the sorceress. And I really like this kind of like a pentacle or pentagram of what is actually inside of the witch. Maybe this is that kind of stuff that is collected in that term power of the witch for the author, even though I believe that she doesn't specifically say that anywhere in this book. Also, in the end of each of these chapters, you will find the proclamation, or that she says here, I'm a force of nature. Then with the creatrix, she writes, I'm the creatrix. Then with oracle, I'm the oracle. And that's really nice end of that chapter, when you kind of take all that information from it, that you can just like mark yourself with, yes, I know this stuff, I practice this stuff, and I am this. This is the part of my witchcraft. That's something that I liked. What I loved on the Force of Nature was that she's talking about womb moon phases, which is like connecting the menstrual phase, goddess phase, season phase, and the moon phase all together. This is something that I would love to be much more went to depth, when it would be much more opened, or when there would be much more information on that. I would really, really appreciate it, because this is something that is not actually written in many of the books, and it's some kind of concept that I really, really like, that wasn't in the previous or older kinds of books, and that should be definitely approached more deeply, and given more information, even from the personal practice and personal experience in this case. I would really appreciate that. Also, in long times ago, women didn't menstruate that often, so that connection with the moon cycle wasn't there that much. And now it is here. We have this kind of metaphor, so I would love if it would be worked with in books a little bit more and a little bit wider. Then the next part that I liked was in the chapter The Creatrix, where is something on like a different performed spells, and here's information that I didn't have, or some kind of a little bit fresher information for me, which I always appreciate, on mojo bags, power sigils, witch's ladder, and witch's bottle. So these four basic kind of spells are taken from a little bit new perspective for me here, and I also appreciate that they are a part of this book. Another is something written here in the Oracle, and she's actually talking here about the labyrinth-like structure that was viewed by those who built her as the womb of the goddess. It's talking about the dreamer and the hypogeum, and underground, that is the labyrinth-like structure. And I really appreciate that, because of with the book Advanced Witchcraft, I finally got more information on labyrinths, and here again the labyrinth is mentioned in another kind of way, and I really like it. She's continuing with that structure was a dream incubator, a place you came for comfort, healing, and divine guidance through dreams. Pregnant women would come and sleep in that chamber so that the spirit would come into their fetus. Women literally dreamed life into being within a womb. So that was another thing that I really liked, and I would like to mention also in my Book of Shadows. The sorceress then brought me an information on the magic in your cauldron. I like the idea that the author talks about our womb as a cauldron. And this kind of connection actually helped me to understand her on the very end of this book. I will definitely mention that in a minute. But first of all, she's writing here that the women womb is like a cauldron, it's a pelvic bowl, and it's the place to heal and transmute all. It's a place of darkness from which we shouldn't be scared of, and darkness, this kind of darkness brings also some kind of shadow which we should appreciate, understand, and work with. So that's a few things that I really appreciated, and again I would like this to be taken more in depth, more into that kind of inner power source, that kind of darkness of the womb, that is the darkness that brings the life, and also connected shadow work a little bit. In the end, she's writing here which we walk in fire because we are the fire. And this sentence, after reading about that wamp as a cauldron, actually helped me to understand where I see the problem or when I kind of can't relate with this author. I suppose that we are the cauldron, we are the wamp, we are the space of darkness, of kind of like a wet space somewhere between water and the earth, while the fire is something that can warm it all up and actually help us to bring the new life to existence. When you have a cauldron and you would like to make something in it, you will always have the fire under it, and that fire will warm up the poison or the soup or the brew, anything that you would like to work on, any kind of elixir of life. While this author, Lisa Lister, I suppose that she's trying to make women to have fire in their cauldron, and this kind of fire, I'm afraid, is destructive, because whenever you are burning something in your cauldron, okay, you're sending something away, giving it light over darkness. There is loads and loads of correspondences and connotations, but in the main sense, the fire inside of the cauldron, I made here a little picture, brings destruction, while the fire below or under the cauldron helps with creation. And I think that this is what was actually problematic for me from the very beginning, that I believe that Lisa Lister has a fire in her cauldron, and that fire is sparkling both joy but also loads of anger, while I work with this kind of approach of fire that is supportive and controlled, and it's under the cauldron. So that would be my ideas, my notes on this book. Also, I forgot to mention on the beginning just these few more things that I liked on the book. There's a really, really lovely list of traditions. I would definitely recommend that. There's new information on, or like for me, a bit new information on Sabbats. I like the way she's approaching it. She always brings there some things that you are supposed to use on your altar, that are the symbols of the season. Then there's always 2 herbs and few sentences about them, and so on, and some kind of way of celebrating, which I very much liked. Also, there's really, really good thoughts on cultural appropriation, that when we are working with some kind of mythology or approach that is not from our cultural background, that it is completely okay, but we should definitely be very, very respectful towards people who were there before us and who are like originals in this kind of practice, which I very, very much like. It was approached in a very peaceful way and reasonable way. So that's what I appreciate. And then there was also kind of, not a lot, but some stuff on gypsy magic. So for those who are interested in this kind of magic and this kind of working, I believe also when they are more kind of fire type of the people, for those people is definitely this book good. I could recommend it for them if they would wish to dive into this kind of, not waters, but like oily, fiery waters. So that's my review on this book, and see you soon.